This is TechTalk Detroit with Brian Spurgeon and Chuck Lobert. TechTalk Detroit brings you the latest in tech news and Detroit happenings every week.
Welcome back to TechTalk Detroit. Glad to have you with us. Brian, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chuck. How about you?
Oh, can't complain. What'd you do this weekend?
This weekend, just a lot of stuff around the yard, had some cooler weather here. It was mid to high 60s, so got out on the boat, did a little fishing, caught a huge smallmouth bass, probably the biggest one I think I've caught. Aside from that, just trimming bushes around the yard, taking advantage of that work that you hate doing when it's 90 degrees and, when it's 65, 70, it's perfect to do. So that was my weekend in a nutshell.
So did you weigh the fish so you can go after your master angler?
I hate you. I know that's how it goes too. I know it was a huge bass. It was a little over 21 inches. I've caught enough to know it was in the 6 pound range at least. And didn't have the scale, just a huge rookie move.
That stinks.
So disappointing.
Yeah, I spent the weekend cleaning out the basement. We're gonna try to semi-finish the basement, put a workout area down there, and
Nice.
so I spent like 6 hours on Saturday cleaning out the basement, killing spiders, and then my wife calls me down there today because there's a spider in the washer. Like, I don't know, what do you want me to do with it? She knows I hate spiders. I mean, you want me to call our 12-year-old or our 15-year-old to come get it for you? Like, what am I supposed to do?
Just run a cycle.
That's what I said. I'm like, just run a cycle, it'll kill it. She was worried she'd touch a dead spider then.
Oh my
God. I had to sift through the towels that were in there until I found this thing.
Well, that's the problem. If you would have washed it, it would have ended up inside of her shirt or something,
Yeah, it's true. That would have been entertaining.
There's always a chance it ends up in your shirt, though. Don't forget that.
Yeah, that's true. That would not have been entertaining. But yeah, it was a nice weekend. Weather was beautiful. So I got to get out today, I think, and cut my lawns. I did not get around to that over the weekend, but it was nice.
Yeah.
So
what do we got on the agenda for today? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're going to talk about, we're in the process right now of moving to a new office building, building it out, getting everything ready. So I thought we might focus in on that and really kind of, what's involved with that from a leadership side of things and a planning side of things, the technology side of things. If you have a service desk that you need to worry about, what kind of things do you need to worry about if you're going to a new office space? Because that's something that I think there's potential that a good amount of companies might be doing here shortly, whether they're downsizing, upsizing, whatever the case is. I think, I know office space has kind of been at a premium, and that's a sign that people are making moves and changing where their office is located. So I thought it'd be a good topic for us to talk about and kind of from that CIO level, but really, we can kind of talk because we've been involved in the whole process, talk beyond just CIO, but obviously our focus around the podcast is really looking at things from that CIO perspective. So what things do you need to worry about when you look at your internal team and the technology that's going to go into this office space? So I thought that'd be a good topic for today.
Yeah, I think it's good. And I think this is one of those business endeavors that can really go one of two ways. And more often than not, I feel like, if you just do the proper planning up front and you really think everything through, it can be a pretty seamless transition. But unfortunately, if you don't really put the upfront planning into it, it can be a complete disaster and really just an entire disruption to your business. So hopefully this, we can kind of hit on some key areas that you should be honing in on prior to your actual move date.
Yeah, absolutely. So like kind of the main topics I was thinking of is, really kind of figuring out the layout, if you're going to cut up the offices or where do you want your conference rooms to be, where do you want your staff to, how do you want to divide them up, all of that kind of stuff. Looking at the design of the space itself, if you're going to make this move, you want to make sure that the office space is good. So are you doing that yourself? Are you hiring an outside firm to help you out with that? when it comes to service desk in particular, there's a lot of noise that goes along with that. So that's something you got to think about, is how you're going to handle that. And, where do you want to have that particular team that's going to be on the phones all day? And then the technology around conference rooms, what do you have to think about? Where's your server going to go? All of that kind of stuff. Physical security to the space itself, as well as to any high value infrastructure that you have. And then, for us, within our culture, one of the big things that we've spent a lot of time on is really kind of that lounge area, the kitchen area, the hangout area.
Yeah.
Because we have high stress jobs, I would say, and so it's nice for the team to be able to have ways to release some of that stress and have some fun too. So I know that's something that we've put a lot of focus on too. So those are kind of the main areas that I could think of where I thought it makes sense to talk about. So when we think about that first one, layout, kind of figuring out where people are going to be and everything, from the technical side of things, when you look at the technical departments that you're dealing with, what are the big things that you look at when you think about the layout of the office itself?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think you got to have a mix of some open floor plan so that you can expand, especially if your business is one that's growing. You have to anticipate, you got to decide really how long you want the space to last for. So if you're looking, for us, I think we're looking in that 7 to 10 year range is kind of the goal to get out of this next space. So obviously the service desk is taking the most personnel. So we kind of have to start there. You want to make sure you've got a large enough space dedicated to them to fit 7 to 10 years of potential growth. So I think that's a good starting point. They're going to require the largest dedicated area in terms of departments, right? So from there, once you kind of get that figured out, then you can kind of put the rest of the puzzle together. So I think that's the key. I think the other piece is, you have to look at the type of work that your IT team's doing and really your whole business. So, we have a lot of one-on-one meetings and, a couple techs on a call with a vendor, or, a department doing a team meeting to kind of do a plan of a project coming up or meet with the client. So I think we want to have a good mix of that kind of area where you're not having people have these open collaborative discussions in a space that's going to impact other people that are trying to hone in on a phone call and keep quiet. So I think it's good to, in this day and age, just to kind of chalk up a lot of space for that. And I almost feel like you can't have enough of that. I feel like if you create all these little small little collaboration areas, you're going to get a ton of use out of that, because people are going to want to get up from their desk, go sit in that space if they know they got an hour webinar call, right? Because it's a spot they can go to. They know they won't get interrupted. If somebody sees you in there, they know you're tied up with something. And it's just an ability to isolate yourself to get something important done. I'm of the opinion of kind of move away from just these large encompassing conference rooms and see what more you can do with the space, right? You still need to have your good conference space, totally. But, the reality is most of the meetings that happen in the conference room are with a smaller collection of people. So I think it's good to kind of cater to both, where you don't have people fighting over a single space all the time. And so that's the starting point for me, at least. What's your thought?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like even, looking specifically at the conference room that you were talking about, for me, you got to have a mix. You have to have a big enough conference room for the whole team to meet at times, because you have your times when you get the whole team together for, we do that every time we hire somebody new. We have a new hire lunch where we all get together. Obviously you have regular team-wide meetings, stuff like that. But what I liked is, some of the stuff we've looked at is kind of taking a larger area that could be used as a really large conference room and breaking it into a big enough conference room, but then also do what you talk about and kind of partition out. And they got like these glass walls where you can partition out into like 3 of these smaller, or even 4 of these smaller, one-on-one or up to 4 people type meeting rooms where you can have more of that collaboration style. So that's something I really liked. I think it makes a lot of sense, because now you've broken one potential real large conference room into 4 different meeting areas, depending on the size of the group that's meeting at any time. Beyond that, I think you got to figure out the placement of that type of stuff. You don't necessarily want to have a collaboration area right next to, say, where your service desk is, unless you're going to be able to divide that up a little bit, because you got that noise factor, right? You got people that are on the phone with clients. You don't want them hearing, the whatever's going on behind, next to them or behind them in this collaboration area, because, just by nature, generally when you're collaborating with people, it tends to get loud. People are joking around and laughing and all of that kind of stuff, and it can interfere with the people that are on the phone. So, that's a consideration. Beyond that, from my side of things with the sales and marketing, I wanted to make sure that we would have a really good conference room for when we bring clients in and prospects in to be able to meet in. So we're going to have a kind of the way we're doing that is having a second conference room that's going to be focused around that. And, when you think about the conference rooms, to me, the big thing that comes in outside of the obvious of, you got to have a conference room table and your chairs and all that kind of stuff, but is the technology that goes around it as well. How do you need, what kind of technology do you need for any particular conference room? And I think the biggest thing is, the first thing you got to look at is what's the use of it. And, you don't want to just say, well, every conference room needs a standard TV, a computer to run that TV, and that's it. I think you really have to look at, what's the goal of this conference room, what's it going to be used for? And then from there, you can start to build out the technology that goes around it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea, because if it's just a meeting room where you're just discussing, you don't need to really go with the high end equipment. And if it's just internal meetings, then you can kind of not really worry about putting much resources into having a huge conference phone, or a big conference room phone to call in vendors and things. So that definitely plays in. And like you said, we split up the client facing conference room from the rest of the company. And I think if you have the floor plan to do something like that, and you do typically bring clients in, I think it's a great idea. For one, you're not worrying about whether or not the conference room is cleaned up for the meeting before it, right? You're not dealing with water stains and stuff on the table, which we're always scrambling to make sure, not that we have a messy office, but that's just the reality of what happens when you're sharing one space for multi-purpose. So I think, separating that kind of stuff out makes a huge difference. And one last thing I'll say about the layout too is, beyond making your current employees feel comfortable and feel like they have good options to work, obviously you want your office to look great when you bring in clients and guests. But I think also you really have to think about this from a selling point in terms of hiring new talent. I think, at least in Metro Detroit area, good talent's really hard to find in the IT field, because typically they're not leaving their companies. And I think also the reality is like, we're competing against the likes of Facebook and Google and Microsoft, right? And we're not competing to them from a revenue standpoint, obviously, but in terms of the talent, we certainly are. And when you think about like Facebook, Google, Microsoft's workplaces, you think about this awesome, super open, collaborative environment with all these little breakout rooms and, fancy coffee bars and snack stations and, workout facilities and ping pong tables and all that. So I think you really have to kind of embrace that a bit, that's kind of what the modern office is transforming to, that the 20 somethings, 30 somethings, that's what they want. And I think that's kind of what's important. And you pick up on that, when we have interviews, people tell us that's what they like when they come in and see the environment. So I think that's key.
I want to know why you excluded me from that, because I just turned 40 in February. So I still like playing ping pong, Brian.
Well, you're not as young as you once were. So, I don't want to put the pressure on you or anything. And, I didn't say you were 40. You just happened to bring that up. So
I knew I didn't like you. I started to forget why, but thanks for reminding me. No, I think that is, all super important to think about. And I think when it comes to the design, it's at least for us, I like to think that we could design it ourselves, but the reality is, if you and I were to design this office space, it would probably not end up looking the best. We're not interior designers, so I know we're using
It looked
an
like a
interior.
fraternity house. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
It'd be a fraternity house that was very nice.
So yeah, we're using an interior designer. I think that's a good way to go. And I think also you got to talk to your staff. You had mentioned, it's going to be something that people are going to use to decide if they want to come work for you. So if you talk to your current staff and what's important to them, and what do they want to see? What change? How would they like the layout to be? What do they want to see as far as the conference rooms and the hangout area, the lounge area, all of that kind of stuff. It's going to help you to build out that space in a way that's going to attract, other staff members as well. So I think that's a good way to go. Now, when we talk about the technology around it, server, network infrastructure, what kind of forethought needs to go into all of that? It's something that you're working on right now.
For sure. And so first and foremost, you got to have your layout figured out, right? That's why we started the topic with that.
Yep.
It's no way to know what technology you need where, what kind of installation you do until you have a good floor plan laid out. So assuming that's all determined, the most obvious thing is this space already wired for what we need? So you're going to want to think about where desks are going to be located. Everybody wants a nice, clean looking environment. So I think that's going to be the key, is to determine where to put all of your network drops in, where to put your power outlets in. That way you can kind of have a thing where you can have a nice, clean looking space. I think from there, then the obvious thing is determining which rooms you're going to want to have like a shared screen. And, for us, obviously conference rooms, we have that in, but we also dedicate that for each of the departments as well. For our professional services team who does our implementations, they have a space, they have a screen dedicated to their space. So that way, when they're all, building out a project plan or looking through something, they can all have their eyes on one screen, not having to huddle around a desk. I think that's nice. I think also for the service desk, we have screens that run our metrics all day. So they can see real-time dashboards with tickets in queue, tickets, that are approaching SLA. And it's just a way to have the measurements right in their face all day. So I think that's kind of the first step. But ultimately, yeah, you're going to want to dedicate a good space for, if you're hosting your own server equipment, your switches, your firewall, you got to dedicate a space to that. And I think something key there is, a lot of people just kind of look at like a small little closet and say, we'll just shove this stuff in here, it'll fit. And really, you got to be thinking about, is that space properly cooled, right? So one of the things we ran into in our area was we had a particular area that was very large, would have been awesome for it, but it's also where the furnace is originating from, and the room's at like 100 degrees all the time. Well, if you've run a server in any kind of closed space, I mean, that thing's going to jump, I don't even know how much, 20, 30 degrees in that room just by turning on your servers and letting them run all day. So I think it's important to make sure you have good air circulation in a room. If there isn't an air duct, you should really plan on some type of air conditioning unit for your equipment. Beyond that, I think the key is to do, so for us, we're looking at getting all new headsets, right? Service desks, they're going in a nice open area. So if you have a part of your business where they're taking a lot of calls and you got people in an open area in a shared space, I think it's very worthy investment to get some active noise canceling headphones. But when you go to that route, active noise canceling is going to cancel all sound around you. It's only going to hone in on the voice that's right in front of the microphone. So you're able to block out any kind of loud background noise. And if you go, a 2-ear headset, they're not going to hear anything going around them either. So they're just focused in. There's no distractions when on call. I think that's kind of the key for where the technology starts, is the layout, so you can wire properly, finding a good, safe, secure location that's also temperature controlled for your main equipment. And then I think just looking at the spaces available, really getting either, headsets for your phone system, or if you're using soft phones, which is, we're actually moving away from hard dial phones altogether with this new office space, because, the work from home is gone so well. using the soft phones that we'd rather just put the money into getting better headsets than as opposed to getting new phones altogether. So I think those are the decisions we're making at the surface from a technology standpoint.
Have we talked about working from home yet on our podcast?
I don't know. We should add that in maybe. It seems like it would be a good time to speak on it.
We may have hit it once or twice.
Yeah, or three. Yeah, maybe not though. It is nice though to get away from those topics, right? It does feel good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
How much this changes over 2 months' time. It's great.
I think the other, we've talked in the past about the benefits of being in the cloud. This is another spot where really that comes into play is the more, the less infrastructure you've got to worry about, the less you have to worry about having a space for it. For us, it's really all we've got to worry about is a couple of switches. We don't have any servers on premise anymore. Everything's in the cloud. So, it makes it a lot easier for us. We don't have to have that traditional server room where you have to have it cooled and have the fire suppression and all of that kind of stuff, because all we got to worry about is really a couple of switches, and we've got our wireless. And that's another, I think, key thing that you got to worry about is the layout of your wireless, making sure that you got proper coverage, making sure that everywhere that you need to have it, which is really everywhere, every single corner in your building anymore, has the appropriate amount of bandwidth, appropriate coverage for the wireless signal as well. So that's I think another area that you got to plan for.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, and that's a good point, is you want to make sure too that you get a very nice wireless system that has a mesh capability where you have several access points that all broadcast the same wireless network, but that you can move interchangeably from access point to access point as you walk through the building and maintain your connection. I think when you're going back to talking about the layout and kind of the modern workplace that we're moving towards today, you're going to have people undocking from their desk to take their laptop into a conference room. And then from there, they're going to throw it up on a screen. And then they might run from there and go right to the lunch area, right? Still on their laptop. And without a good wireless system to back that type of movement throughout the office, those users are going to have a difficult time. And that's going to tap into people's efficiency, right? If a user knows that they undock a laptop and walk to the conference room, that they're going to drop their signal and have to go back and re-authenticate to SharePoint to pull up their document again, you're going to see people making decisions to just not do that, right? And not that you want people to work all through their day and work through their lunch shifts, but you want at least an environment where if somebody wants to take off lunch now, but they want to keep working on something in a different area, they can do that uninhibited. So I think the wireless is a huge piece to your plan. And that's one of the areas where, from a budgetary standpoint, if you're looking to, find areas to get within your budget, I would not sacrifice the wireless system whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree. I think the last big area that you got to worry about is the physical security. Obviously, if you have a server room, you want to control access to that, but even then just to the building, and you got to think through all of the different points of access. Is there an elevator coming into the space? How are you controlling access from that elevator if it drops straight into your area? Is there a fire escape? How do you control that access? Stairs, it's kind of thinking through all of the different access points to make sure that things are properly secured from that standpoint. I know, like at our current office, we've got the fingerprint system to unlock the door to get in. I'm sure we're going to keep something along those lines, some kind of biometric, because it's a nice, easy, high security type of way. But we have a lot more access points now than what we used to. So it's kind of thinking that through and planning for that as well, that you got to really put some time into as well.
Yeah, and I think the biometrics, I am a huge fan of, if it's not too cost prohibitive and you have an environment, like you said, where it's easy to control that. For one, just the management's so much easier, not having to worry about either physical keys or key cards and, onboarding, offboarding and collecting that. It's, you do the biometrics, you're killing an account and it's just one click disable and you're cutting off access right then and there. So I think that's, from a management standpoint, it's great. But I think also on that note too, just to tie into that is, one of the concepts that we're going to have is you have these multiple different spaces, conference spaces, collaboration rooms, but is leveraging, your Office 365 tenant. And, you can create these resources that are manageable and able to be scheduled out as well. And that's something that should be taken into this as well. That's another thing that can tie in with your security system, where if it's not your time, you can't get into that room. So, if you want to force people to do the proper thing, they know they have a meeting Friday from 2 to 3. It's easy to go in and schedule out that resource and have a system in place that backs that up. So that way, the people that are planning their days properly, they have access to all these things, and you're not having 3 people show up at the same time trying to do the same thing. So that's something as well that, using that feature to tie in with, the entry systems to your building that you can use to leverage for more than just in and out.
Yeah. I was out at Microsoft's offices a few years back, and I did this tour of this, future office home type thing. And they had a system where, they had a camera above the door, and as you walked up, it would recognize your face. And if you had access, it would just automatically unlock the door and you could go in. Something like that would be really cool. What I've always told you that I want is something like that. But then when I walk through the door, I want it to be like a wrestler walking in. I want my theme song to start.
Oh God, yeah, that'd be awesome.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
I'm all about it. We need to make that happen for sure. And one last little hack too, in terms of pleasing your IT force, is don't cheap out on the coffee. If you're going to the space, make sure you take the time to think out a very good coffee pot. IT people, they live off coffee all day, every day. So that's one of the areas, if you want to make that department happy, make sure you're doing good coffee.
I bet you I've got 8 hours into researching coffee pots.
I'm sure you do. Absolutely. That's a big deal in our office.
Sending them over to our resident technical coffie expert and getting his okay on them too. So
it's so funny. It's true
for sure. And really, it really comes down to that whole lounge area. Like we said, when you have a stressful job, and sometimes dealing with clients can be stressful, they gotta have a way to take a break and to kind of unwind. So having a nice lounge area, we just got our new ping pong table in. It looks really cool.
Awesome.
We're putting a really nice kitchen. We're putting a lot of thought into stuff like the coffee and other stuff that we need to have having a couple of burners so people can make stuff. We've talked about putting a grill in outside so that we can go outside and grill up some lunch, just different things like that people can do to just kind of take a break and unwind. And especially, we tell people, if you have a particularly difficult call, just hang up, get up, and, go for a walk, go play some ping pong, just do something and kind of just get away for a little bit. Because if you just jump right to that next call and you just got off a bad call, you're going to carry over that attitude. And now your next call is going to start, at least not as good as it could if you go into it with the right attitude.
Totally agree. Here's the thing. It's not an 8 to 5 anymore. It's not a 40-hour week, punch in, punch out, right, and forget about work. The reality is, especially in the IT field, is it really is a 24/7 field. It's not a business hours type thing. So that translates to employees having to spend a lot of time in the office, sometimes planned or not planned. And I think it's important as a business to do your best to accommodate that, make it comfortable, and make it a place where when somebody wakes up in the morning, they're excited to get to work, right? They want to come in. And I think that's kind of the goal of what we're shooting for here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're hoping to be into this new office space sometime, hopefully in August, depending on how everything's going with all of this, the COVID and, the stay at home and all of that kind of stuff. We're hoping to be able to throw a big, kind of opening party for the new office. So we'll certainly talk about that in future episodes as we get closer to it. But some point this year, at least, hopefully we'll be able to do that and get, invite people to come in, clients, prospects, any listeners, whatever, to see the new office space, hang out, have a drink, enjoy some food, play some ping pong, whatever. And just kind of get a chance to see the new space. It's going to be really nice. We're really looking forward to it. We're anxious to get in there. Once we get through all of this and we get back to work, which we're still all working from home probably till that new office space is ready. So, we're looking forward to getting in there, and we'll talk about it in future episodes. We appreciate you taking the time to listen today. Hopefully you got something out of this, especially if you are considering a new office space, some pointers to think about, and some planning that you got to do. So appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Interact with Tech Talk Detroit at techtalkdetroit.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.